Hello, and welcome to the Why Did You Write That podcast. Today we're going to be covering the Sex and the City reboot, Just Like That, which honestly we should have known just from the title that it was going to be terrible. With me today is Doughboy the folklorist and Telebnar the magnificent, and we are going to be your hosts in this cavalcade of Drek. Before we start, I just want to remind you that if you would like to send us a message about anything that we're covering, you want to say hi, you want to say, I don't know, you like my shades, or that you like Doughboy's input, please send those messages to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And of course, we are doing our monthly fundraiser, Funny Badger Radio, at feedthebadger.com/support. So those, consider helping us out if you enjoy this content, if you want us to continue to tear apart crappy writing of all sorts. I just wanted to, before we get into it, I just wanted to say, it's nice that women are feeling the pain when it comes to this new, incredibly bad woke writing. Because for a while now, it's mostly been men's genres of entertainment that have really felt the pinch. But the truth is that bad writing comes for us all. So now it's women's turn. They get to enjoy the destruction of a beloved property by, well, many women. And that is Sex and the City. So, I guess we could start by watching a trailer, unless Telemnar or you Doughboy, you want to say something? Want to get in there and have some commentary of any sort? Want to talk about the worst thing about the reboot briefly, or just make
writing is bad, and Michael Patrick King should feel bad.
Yes, he should. He should, especially since he didn't start out bad. He didn't start out a crappy show.
He just started out having the existing work of whatever it was, the woman who wrote Sex and the City.
Yes.
That's what he started out basing his stuff on. So maybe without her, he was just not
began to suck more and more.
Talented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's entirely possible. He ran out of original material, and it really shows. Okay, so let us.
So your power went out. No. You're watching Sex and the City?
Out. Impy, this is where you're live currently, so.
Sorry.
This, yeah, please. I probably should have been indicated that we are going live. So we have people in the community just sort of popping in, but unfortunately, if you're here, that makes it very difficult for other people to see the response. The Discord response. So, because you sort of overwhelm it with your icon. So if you could listen, you can just go to the YouTube channel and listen in there. Okay? All right. So let us begin with the trailer. Okay, let's see if this works. This is the original Sex and the City trailer. And I will have to banana, because what that means is I'm going to have to stop after 20 seconds. Otherwise, YouTube will hit us with the copyright stick. Just tell me if you can hear this.
Hello, lover.
In New York, they...
Closed captions deployed. And there we go.
There we go.
Yeah. And you can't hear it. You should be able to hear it because this is going through Discord. And starting again.
Hello, lover.
In New York, they say you're always looking for a job, a boyfriend, or an apartment.
I've been dating since I was 15. I'm exhausted. Where is he?
Who, the White Knight?
Sometimes it's hard to walk in a single woman's shoes. That's why we need really special ones to...
Well, that's probably because you're in a bit of a man desert. Let's be honest. Most of the cities throughout the U.S. tend to skew majority female because this kind of life really attracts women. And the men in the cities actually make less on average than the women in them. So that's probably why. And this has been a problem for decades now. At least as long as I've been tracking the stats on the wage gap. But
apparently, New York City, which is where this is set, I think has the, at least now, it might have been different 25 years ago when this show, no, 27 years ago when this show came out. But right now it has, I think, the largest difference in the numbers of men and women, with there being more women. Women outnumber men more in New York City than in any other city in the entire United States. And of course, with all the favoritism they've been shown over the decades at various levels, they also are much more likely to have higher status jobs if they don't do very much in them. So, finding an eligible bachelor is difficult because all the men with good taste are prefer the company of their fellows, let's say.
they are men of a certain kind of culture.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's continue.
Make the walk a little more fun. Have you ever been in love?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Oh, good lord. Sorry, I think that Mr. Big is like the worst part of the 2 episodes of Sex and the City. No, he's not the worst part. But he's up there. With, at least for me. I didn't find him a very pleasant addition at all.
Why do I think living in Manhattan is so fantastic?
Because it is.
You see, this is not for me. Like, as much as I can say that it's not for me, I can appreciate the writing. I think the writing on the original was actually pretty on point, especially since it created something watchable for someone who this is not for. Like, this looks like hell. Living in the city looks like hell to me. It's a hellscape.
There's always a new neighborhood, a new restaurant.
A new man? Maybe.
Sorry?
This is New York 25 years ago. It's gotten a lot worse.
Yeah. Also, the obsession with novelty, not my cup of tea. That's why I live in a very rural area.
You have to let go of who you were to become who you will be. We still gonna have to call it date night in our 50s?
I'm a trisexual.
Oh, good lord. So for those of you who don't know, the reboot picks these women up again, except for Samantha in the 50s, when they're in their 50s.
I'll try anything once.
It's all fun and games till someone has a child.
If you find someone to love the you love, well, that's just fabulous.
To love the you that you love.
Maybe we could be each other's soulmates.
The most important thing in life is your family. Sometimes it's the family you're born into.
Oh, fun fact, Sarah Jessica Parker and the woman who plays Samantha apparently are arch nemesis, or nemesises in real life. I found that pretty funny.
And sometimes it's the one you make for yourself.
Oh, it's it's sort of a found family vibe. Okay. Alright, so that's the trailer to the max. But I figured it'd give you a good overview of the fun and games in Sex and the City, or at least the... Oh, that's echoing. What's echoing? Is it echoing when I played the trailer? Oh, good grief. I don't even know why. Let me see. No, that shouldn't be echoing. There should be no echo. Alright, so let us get on with it. That is the original Sex and the City trailer. And it looks like let me just find the just like that, and just like that. Who the hell named this? And just like that.
It has, the title is like the opposite of memorable for me. I've had a really hard time remembering.
Yeah. Sex and the City is memorable. You have to give it that. Yeah. Just like that, not memorable. Very not memorable. Okay, let's go. What's this? Some freaking pop-up. Okay.
There's nothing like summer in New York City.
New York City girl.
With its hot days and even hotter nights. Something new and unexpected always awaits.
Rats? Prancing around like in a nutcracker. I'm trying something new. It's fiction.
Romanticy is very.
Okay, so it's an allusion to the absolute state of fantasy fiction and its takeover by romance. And, yeah, okay.
Hot right now. Sex in the Cauldron.
Now I have a title.
Sex in the Cauldron. It's going to be a really big cauldron. Is there heat under the cauldron? Like, is there a fire? Is a cauldron in a fire?
Oh. Carrie,
Have you heard anything from Aiden?
yeah, I got a postcard today.
Well, what did he write?
Nothing.
Oh, blank postcards gets an all?
Well, not an over-the-top all, but it's better than nothing.
Okay, so those of you who don't know, this is after her husband died. And apparently, I'm pretty sure that this is the first. Oh no, it's the season 3. Oh, okay.
Season 3 trailer.
Yeah.
And they
I
got
guess,
Miranda to dye her hair red again.
yeah, and I guess they're trailer season 1. Sorry, I
It's
should have corrected that.
in the highlighted in orange.
Okay, there we go. Don't worry, I got it. We're doing fine. We'll get there.
The more I live,
So this is the
the
season
more I
1 trailer.
find
Sorry
out
guys, I
if you
got the
have
season
good
3
friends in your
trailer.
corner.
It's
Anything's
not very
possible.
memorable. I couldn't tell the difference.
The future is unwritten because we're all at different stages of life.
Tonight, bring your A game.
How many dating apps are you on?
I'm just waiting for someone to create a dating site that's called Here's the Man You've Been Searching for, Seema.
This is X, Y, and me. What about you, Carrie? Have you
So women want to go on the dating sites and have the dating sites do the work for them.
ever masturbated
Could
in
you
a
have the
public
closed
place?
captions on, please?
Oh, are you having trouble reading again? Okay. Oh,
Not since
God, I'm
Barney's
having
closed.
flashbacks to this stupid show.
Oh, honey, I'm home.
I remember when you kept your sweaters in the stove.
There are always going to be roads not taken.
So you can't have it all.
No, you can. It's just really hard. You're not happy with who you are? Step out of that box and change.
Oh Jesus Christ! I just wandered off there for a bit. Spacing out, so boring.
And just like that, after all the years and all the changes, you're still you. Hello, lovers.
So I guess instead of emphasizing the relationship between the women, they emphasize the relationship between this woman and her shoes. Wow, we're really
Trying to do that a little in the first one.
They do? Well, I mean, little, but still, it goes back to actually having relationships with human beings, like, not shoes. All right, okay. So why don't we start with? Let me just switch this stuff around. Why don't we start with overall thoughts? Do you
We
guys
start with a plot summary for the first episode of And Just Like That, which is the new one.
Sure. I don't envy you.
All right.
Go
So
ahead,
we meet
attempt it.
back up. Yes, we meet back up with 3 of the 4 Sex and the City women. The one who smokes cigars and will basically have sex with absolutely anything and anyone at any time for any reason. The actress decided she didn't want to be in this, and so she's just off to London. And
Good
there's been,
instincts.
and there's been some loss of contact and whatever. It's just alluded to. Let's see, but the other 3 are still friends, and Carrie, the main one, is married to Mr. Big, and they have a sort of generic marriage, but no children.
Mm.
And she goes on this podcast with Che Diaz, and it's just raunchy in a gross kind of way instead of in a funny and titillating kind of way, and she's uncomfortable with it, even though she wrote the Sex and the City, and that was... I posted a meme about that. It's the I used to be with it, then they changed with it what it was, and now what's it is not what I'm with anymore, and I find it strange and frightening, and it'll happen to you. And very much a scene that illustrated that very well, but made the two people running the podcast with her seem pretty unpleasant. Anyhow, so that's what the main thing that happens with Carrie. Miranda, the one with the short hair, who's also a lawyer, she's going for a master's, and she accidentally is really dumb and racist to the professor that she meets, who's a black woman, in a way that really doesn't jive with her character from the original series, but whatever.
It's not that she's dumb and racist. She just gets into this progressive spiral of putting her foot in her mouth, you know?
Well, yeah, but she does it in a way that her character would not have done in the original.
Well, considering she's a high-powered lawyer, she...
smart enough to keep her lips zipped.
Yeah, just be like, yeah, okay, quiet. I'm quiet now.
But she does, yeah, and she does have a son who is now a teenager, and he's bringing his girlfriend over, and they're boinking in the next room, and she and her husband have to sit with that, and so she's going for the hitting the bottle up to deal with her situation, because she's not really happy in life. And the third one, who is more conservative, is Charlotte. She and her husband, excuse me, she and her husband Harry have two teenage daughters. One is kind and obedient and accomplished and nice and feminine, and the other is a tomboy who is stubborn and difficult to deal with. And they're having a piano recital. They're the two daughters, that is, or one of the daughters is having the piano recital, and they ask Carrie to attend because she's the cool, childless wine aunt. And then while she's there, her husband has a heart attack while working out, and then she comes home and sees him lying in the shower, and then he dies.
I just realized...
And she doesn't call 911.
I just realized how little happens in this. Oh, god damn, yes.
This is a 45-minute episode.
Yeah, and nothing happens.
Yes, and so keep in mind, it feels like less happens in this than in a 25-minute episode of the original. We only saw the first two episodes. Should I also summarize the second one, which features the funeral?
I'm just trying to figure out if I can wait before getting into the...
Oh, let's tear into it.
Let's...
No.
Okay,
if you're impatient, we should feed your desires here. And
yeah, that scene where Mr. Big dies, or I think his name is Parker, dies, is absolutely dumb. I think, based on her behavior, the first season should have been her fighting off a manslaughter charge. She didn't even call 911. Okay? She just held him in her arms while he was still alive and didn't call 911. Did she know he was... How did she know she was dying? Right? People can have weird things happen to them. Maybe he's having... a seizure. No intent to actually call people who could help. Just sit there and cradle him while he dies. And again, how did she know he was dying? Maybe he had, like, I don't know, atypical pneumonia or something, walking pneumonia, and he's just going to lie there on their bathroom floor for the next 3 months dying. Like, how did she know? How did she know? She's like, oh, my dying senses are tingling. How did she know? I'm going to have a dying scene. Oh, it's going to be so beautiful. Oh, don't send flowers, though. I don't like flowers. Maybe Mr. Big liked flowers. God damn. Anyway, I thought that was absurd. And I think, honestly, watching it was infuriating. And don't do that. Like, if somebody is in that much distress in front of you, call 911. Okay? At the very least, I'm pretty sure if you don't, and they're dying in front of you, you might be in a bit of legal trouble, a little legal hot water. I think that that's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. If you aren't also dying to just allow someone to die in front of you without actually attempting to call the authorities. His phone was right there. Surely she had her phone in her purse. Surely there was a phone somewhere in the vicinity of that incredibly expensive, that incredibly expensive townhouse. And a phone falling in a shower is not going to cause it to completely stop working, right? I'm sure she could have got off one phone call to 911. Anyway, it was just, I'm like watching this, I'm thinking, oh, good Lord. Good freaking Lord. Okay, somebody deserves a manslaughter charge. But that's not what happened. It's what I wish had happened, but it wasn't what happened.
Would have made the show very interesting.
Yeah, it would have. Maybe Miranda could have been the one to prosecute her.
And it would have vastly reduced their costuming budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why are they wearing, I don't know, drapes and tablecloths all the time? And lots of it, like constantly in large amounts of fabric flowing around. What's with
Display
that?
Their wealth and status.
Ah, okay, that's what it is. I certainly can't wear large amounts of fabric in my day-to-day. Can only imagine the chaos. All right. Okay, so does anybody else have something that just really bothered them? They just need to bitch about it? Doughboy, you're able to speak now. Did you have anything?
Yes, I wanted to say that the show is lifeless. I think the main problem is that it went from being about something topical and universal, like sex and male-female relationships, to just being about the personal lives of the characters. I mean, case in point, the first episode of Sex and the City actually has a montage of men and women talking about their various dating issues. The first episode of And Just Like That has the main characters sharing personal stories, like stepping on their son's used condoms.
Ugh. Yeah. And I found that the original Sex and the City also had a slightly satirical bent. So you would listen to the women talk, and then you would see them do not what they said, essentially. So there was a little bit of a show, don't tell, and commentary on their own behavior. And I thought that it was fair. I mean, it wasn't probably completely fair, but it was fair enough that it actually showed that some of this stuff is on the women, not just the men. Certainly, I don't even know. Like you said, Doughboy, this isn't a commentary on anything. It's just, from what I remember, it was just really boring. Oh, they're doing a lunch date. Oh, they're doing a brunch date. Oh, they're doing a second brunch date. Oh, they're doing drinks. Oh, they're doing mimosas. Oh, they're doing tapas. Oh, they're doing another food-orientated activity. Oh, they're walking to go do drinks again. And it's like, okay, that's all we're getting, eh? Absolutely no plot. None whatsoever. Was there a plot in the original Sex and the City? I don't recall, but the first episode. I think that's your cue, Telenor.
Yes, I figured it was. There is the plot of them trying to, if nothing else, land a man. Like, they're talking about, oh my god, how do we find romance in this? And then they talk about the obstacles that are in it, like why it's difficult for them. And and they're trying to sort of navigate this social scene where the rules don't seem to be set up for them to get what they really want, but do seem to be set up for them to get things that they might say they want, but they kind of feel like they don't really want. unless you're cigar smoking, I will do anything and put anything between my legs, Samantha. So
I actually like Samantha better than the others.
you have goals, but you don't have you have goals and you have obstacles in the first one. Like they're setting up the romance with Mr. Big in the very first episode, right? Like she asks him, "Have you ever been in love?" Because she's the romantic. Who Carrie asks him, "Have you ever been in love?" She's the romantic who is still theoretically searching for love, and he says yes, absolutely. Except he swears, and then he drives off in his chauffeured vehicle, and she thinks to herself, that sets up a plot because, in theory, that means that he's someone she could someday capture romantically, but there's the obstacle of how am I supposed to impress this guy when there are models and considerably looser women or whatever wandering around the city. Like, how am I supposed to convince him that he can marry me? So there's a goal, there are obstacles, there's a plot.
Yep. Well, there you go. And there was
one,
nothing in the reboot.
No, this was slice of life stuff for all four of them, but
There needs to be a new word for it than slice of life, because you can have slice of life and still have obstacles and stakes. You can still have a protagonist that quests for something. Maybe the perfect pizza. And maybe we'll, if it's well written.
I offer the term slice of mundanity.
Ooh,
okay. Slice of mundanity. Slice of nothing.
Slice of boredom.
Slice of solipsism. Slice of absorption.
Slice of navel gazing.
Slice of navel gazing. Slice of navel. Slice of navel fiction. Okay. All right. Here's the thing. Reviewing this, what do you say? Okay. It is terribly written insofar as it isn't. I mean, it doesn't follow the way you would structure a scene or a sequel in fiction. From what I remember of the first episode of And Just Like That, from what I remember, when you have a scene, you set up a scene goal. So your protagonist has a goal for the scene. Okay? They encounter obstacles. Those obstacles prevent them from achieving their goal. Unless you're at the climax, usually they're terminally frustrating. In other words, the protagonist will not achieve. The original Sex and the City, sorry, I muted myself by accident with my flailing. In the original Sex and the City, we have Carrie's goal. And Carrie's goal is, of course, eventually to get Mr. Big. And she does not get Mr. Big until the finale of Sex and the City. But that was her goal. And in each of the scenes that we see her in, usually relate in some way to that goal that she has. And presumably part of the setup is that she's now with a friends with benefits type relationship with was the guy who likes models or some other dude who's like a photographer or something. Anyway, she's got like a friends with benefits relationship with a man, and she ends up having sex and then telling him to leave, and she thinks that she's getting one over on him, but he ends up telling her, "Hey, I'm glad you finally got how I want our relationship to be." So she thinks that she's like screwing him over by getting him to give her head and then telling him to go, and he's like eventually like, "No, that's exactly the way I want it to be. We just get what we want from each other sexually, and we'd have nothing else. We just tell each other to leave, and it's fine." And then she meets up with Mr. Big, and he drops that hint, even though it's sort of annoying. Like, I found the guy who plays him, his acting to be very wooden, which is probably why I found the character annoying. But he gave that little hint that when she said, "Were you ever in love?" And he says, "Yes, I was." I'm going to get rid of the abso-fucking-lutely because I think it was ridiculous, but he just basically says yes. So it's a little hint that this guy, it's possible for her. It's possible. He's possibly somebody that she can actually get. And then that sets up her goal in that scene and then throughout the entire series. You know, that's the goal. And then there's all the obstacles, all the women that are after him, I guess maybe his reluctance to get into another relationship, whatever he thinks about her and his opinion about her, and oh yes, also the fact that he thinks that he doesn't think that she's a real journalist, which she isn't. He thinks that her work is cute. All that becomes obstacles, and then you have, presumably throughout the season, sometimes she gets closer to the goal, sometimes she gets further from it. Maybe she learns something. You know, I probably doesn't learn anything, but we could hope that they also include her having a bit of a character arc where she learns to overcome some flaws in her thinking, or what we call the lie, which is her approach to life that really isn't working for her on a fundamental level. Like maybe she figures out that she attracts the wrong guys through actions that she's taking that she probably should reconsider or something. But regardless, there are obstacles. She maybe overcomes some, 2 steps forward, 4 steps back, that kind of thing. And each scene has a resolution. Has she gone closer to her goal? Is she further from her goal? What is the lie that she believes that's preventing her from achieving her goal? And then we have a sequel in which maybe she has drinks with her friends and ruminates over the thing that just happened. The fact that she met Mr. Big, or the fact that she took 2 steps closer to her and him and then 3 steps back, and why that happened. And she ruminates over it. She integrates all this new information. She has emotions about it. She makes a decision, and that becomes the next scene goal. And that's how you write. And what the heck happened in And Just Like That? And I'd like to point out something about the visual here up above. And Just Like That. Why is the just like? Why is the verb? Like, why are the... You know, like, I get the feeling that just like is about the only thing interesting, and that's the smallest part. So that we end with and that. Not to mention that every word in that title is boring. And okay, correct me if I'm wrong. And is a conjunction. Just is not a word that really adds information to anything. Like is another word that doesn't add anything to anything. And that is a really lame, it's a lame reference to something. Like, why not say what that is? Make it concrete. It's all abstract. It's why it's boring. Why the whole freaking title is boring. The show is boring because it's also abstract, because it doesn't follow goal, obstacle, conclusion, emotion as a result of the conclusion of the scene. Emotion in the sequel leads to a decision, leads to a new goal. It doesn't follow that. It doesn't have causality. It's all just, hi, girlfriend. Hi, girlfriend. Kisses, drinks, food, gossip that was really bland. Okay, am I totally out to lunch, guys? Do I need to be reeled in?
Oh, the title is bland and boring, and therefore bad title.
Bad title. But I mean, just in terms of my estimation of how everything is structured in terms of the writing.
Well, in terms of I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Maybe we should not criticize the title, actually, because it's bland and forgettable, and therefore gives you an idea of what you'll get when you watch the show.
It's accurate to the actual show. All right, then we'll go with that. It's a good title because it's accurate to how bland and forgettable the actual show is, and it's bland and forgettable because it doesn't follow good writing practice. I mean, what was the goal of any of these women in any of this? It's just stuff happens to them, right? In the first episode, what happens? The only thing that really happens is that Mr. Big dies, and Carrie does fucking all. Like, her husband's dying and she does nothing. And Richard was saying, well, some people freeze in a crisis. She didn't freeze. She wasn't sitting there looking at him like a deer caught in the headlights. She actually did something. She just didn't do anything that was worthwhile. And that sort of like encapsulates the whole thing. These aren't characters that do things. They're characters that have things done to them, which are the most boring characters. Passive characters are boring characters. Nobody wants to watch them. Passive characters don't want anything from their lives. They don't seek goals. Was there a goal? Did Carrie have a goal in that first episode of And Just Like Splat?
Well, that's already a pretty distinctive title right there.
Just Like Splat. The
thing is, they did try to use the title as get it out of the catchphrase. That's after her husband dies. I think Carrie Bradshaw says, "And just like that, I was single again," or something along those lines. So they tried to say, "Oh, we'll be clever and we'll work it into the show," but the thing is, it doesn't tell you, as you say, it's 100% abstract, and it doesn't tell you anything. And just like that, what, we all had kids and settled down, or just like that, like, okay, we don't know what particular thing is going to happen, so it doesn't tell us that we're going to be lonely or not lonely or anything. I mean, it's just, oh, things are going to happen. Well, okay, so you've told us that this is a show in which a thing might happen. Well, great, but that's, like, there's no show, hopefully, where that isn't the case, so you should at least give people some information. Is it a thing that has to do with romance, or with being chased by a 50-foot monster, or like what's the happening thing about, please?
John Doe says they're not using new characters. Yeah, the new characters are eminently forgettable. They're just truly forgettable. Except maybe like the binary pod show
the
host.
The chick that Miranda gets in a shouting match with. Well, not much of a shouting match.
And her sort of disgusting male co-host.
Yeah. Is that Bobby, what's his name?
No idea.
Korean guy?
I couldn't answer you that with that.
Bobby Lee, it might be. I can't remember.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question.
Yeah, that was him.
Okay.
He's known for being not a bad comedian, but I think he's done some gross out stuff, so I'm sure this would have been right up his alleyway.
So I would say that they ruin nostalgia for their fans, but I'm sure many women enjoy the show. You mean the current show?
Yeah, I don't think this was too popular with the existing audience.
Yeah. Yeah, like this. Okay,
like
here,
that,
Glamour
so
UK. Glamour UK. Just Like That is so awful. I can't even enjoy hate watching it. Just Like That, spoilers incoming. All right. And this is the women. This is their opinion of this show. And they're recognizing that the writing is so terrible. And the reason why the writing is so terrible is because it's not held to any standard of craft. That's the only thing. There's no standard of craft in any of this. Okay, so welcome to Showtime with Emily Maddock, in which Glamour's assistant editor, entertainment director brings a unique perspective to the month's most hyped film or TV show. For May's installment, Emily takes on the new season of And Just Like That, the Sex and the City follow-up, now in its third season on Sky now. So this is probably more related to the third season, which is we didn't watch the third season, so we can't comment on it. But I highly doubt that it is substantially improved. In fact, judging from the reviews that I've seen, it is substantially not improved. Okay. And just like that, spoilers incoming. In the second episode of the new season 3 of And Just Like That, over lunch, Miranda finds herself confessing to Carrie and Charlotte that she's become obsessed with a new reality TV show. It's so awful, she says. I literally scream at the TV, adding, I finally discovered the joy in hate watching. I wish my viewing experience of And Just Like That was as simple as that. Yes, I think it's awful. Yes, I scream at the TV, and yes, I hate watch it. But I do find joy in said hate watching? Absolutely not. Instead, I find how the show has destroyed the legacy of Sex and the City, too upsetting and too depressing to even enjoy reveling in it or ridiculing it. I, like so many women of my age, have a deeply personal relationship with Sex and the City. When it was first on TV in the early 90s, I was in university in London with dreams of becoming a journalist. Carrie Bradshaw's life is what I aspired to. What a frickin' surprise. Then when I was single in my mid-20s and 30s, carving a career as a writer in the capital and dating unsuitable men, Carrie was my oracle. Unsuitable men. I would fall asleep to her sing-songy voice. And every single night, I'm aware that this is not necessarily healthy. And like Carrie, my female friendships and gay friends were the most treasured relationships in my life. Oh, shoot. I gotta go back to here. I have to put it into the tab again. Just a sec. The show's groundbreaking representation of women pursuing careers over marriage, owning their own pleasure, and breaking free from traditional gender stereotypes was revolutionary and unlike anything that had ever come before. It was witty, sharp, boundary-breaking, heartbreaking, beautiful, and cool. Okay. So even the ones that really liked, and what's really funny is, yeah, Sex and the City when you're young and cute, it looks fun, right? And then when you're old, it looks pathetic. And that's sort of like the reboot sort of proves that. Yeah, that's the problem. You're not setting up a life in your old age that's worth living. Okay, indeed, one of my proudest accolades of my career, was being named the official Sex and the City correspondent for Graza magazine, where I worked for over a decade, when the show was still very much in the zeitgeist and regarded as trailblazing feminist television, which it was. The totally tongue-in-cheek title was bestowed on me due to my passion. Oh, God. Okay, no, I don't care about you. All right, we're done with that.
Oh, we can skip down below the column break for the read more. Below that.
I know I'm not alone in my opinion. Did you want to read it?
Oh, sure. I know I'm not alone in my opinion that And Just Like That is a travesty. Many column inches have been devoted to the show's shortcomings since it first aired in December 2021. I contributed to those column inches when I reviewed the first 2 episodes of Season 1 for Glamour. Writing at the time, it seems like a pastiche, like the creators have taken 3 women from the late 90s or late 2000s and plunked them in today's world without them actually absorbing the past 20 years. Back then, the early episodes of And Just Like That were too self-consciously aware of not only attempting to right past wrongs from Sex and the City in terms of...
Oops, sorry.
What's going on? Oh. Maybe I should have it open on my computer.
Okay, sorry. I moved it.
Yep.
Okay, no, it's right here.
Just a sec. Back then... No, it's okay. I've got it on my computer, so I don't have to rely on anyone else. It's less reliable than myself. Therefore, the early episodes of And Just Like That were too self-consciously aware of not only attempting to right past wrongs from Sex and the City in terms of diversity and representation, but also, like Miranda in those early episodes, trying painfully hard to show how down with the times they were in 2021. It was, as Deadline described it at the time, awkward, uncomfortable, and trying too hard. I agree with that. However, as the show progressed in Season 2, which I don't feel like watching, that aspect seems to calm down. Oh my god, it took them the entire season to... Okay. And just like that, found its groove, and with it, its own fan base. The trick, as many friends have tried to convince me, is to see And Just Like That as a totally separate show from Sex and the City. You just have to separate it from the original show, realize it's way shitter, and then enjoy it for what it is now. I remember one earnest mega essay Sex and the City stan telling me, but the thing is, I can't. I want to love it. I want to be able to laugh at its ridiculousness and see it as camp and fun and frivolous, but there's too much glaringly wrong with it, too much at stake in the new season 3, of which I've seen the first 3 episodes, is, in my opinion, no better. So here, in no particular order, is a list of my beef with And Just Like That. Number 1, the casual sexism that remains unchecked. Husbands Herbert and Harry come out with... I wonder if they're called Herbert and Harry because husband starts with an H. Anyway, that's just a silly thought. Come out with such crappy casual sexism that, while it may actually exist in real life in the Upper East Side, doesn't need to be given airtime on HBO Max, and what's more, treated as if it's normal. Yes, Lisa claps back with sass, Charlotte claps back with proclaiming her career and getting drunk, but why give such outdated views the airtime in the first place? Lisa can perfectly well be an incredible documentary maker without us having to see her dealing with crap like, you're working too hard, why don't you just cancel your meeting and let me write you a check, from her husband. Oh my god, I would like to have someone say that to me. Anyway, the gender stereotyping is not progressive. Side note, Harry was never casually sexist in Sex and the City. Continued reductive approach to gay men, although... Alright, well, they were actually reasonably well written, I would say, as characters. Anthony, saddled with lines such as, I'm so excited, the Met Ball. God, I love balls. Yeah, I'd say the sex humor... I've seen a couple of episodes of the original Sex and the City, and I think it was always at that level.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So, all the while still plugging away at his equally reductive Hot Fellas Bakery, a business that is based purely on objectifying young men, which seems jarring and confused given how painstakingly conscious the writers are to handle Miranda's sexuality and chase non-binary storylines with sensitivity. I mean, there are tons of places that use sex appeal to sell a mediocre product. I have no idea. It's impossible to... The problem with this is, of course, whatever kind of show you make, you'll never please everyone, and if you try to make a show where you have a variety of different people with different opinions and attitudes and approaches to life, this is my own commentary at this point, by the way, then a huge percentage of people are going to be pissed off, because these days, any kind of depiction of any difference is taken as... I don't know, heresy by a certain portion of the population, and they're just going to shriek like a bunch of harridans, so you can't have a show that shows a variety of people in it. You can't actually have a slice of life with actual diversity in it, because then there will be people who will be different from other people in ways that matter, and some of those ways will be ways that offend the feminists, and oh my god, we wouldn't want to do that, would we? Anyway, and thank God Che Diaz is not in season 3, because for a stand-up comic, she is not funny. The article says I don't give a crap. The Comedy Store in LA would never accept this joke. Everyone is so lazy in LA. Last night I took an Uber from my bathroom to my bedroom. Okay, I mean, depends on the timing and delivery, I guess. Her public savaging of Miranda after they broke up at the end of season 2 was equally unfunny and cruel, which leads me to Carrie. Well, her character is always a horrible person. I mean, crass at the best of times, and anyway, I want to complain about her character's behavior in episode 2 later. Which leads me to Carrie. Carrie is more problematic, oh no, arrogant and selfish as a friend than she ever was in Sex and the City. Case in point, Che's savaging of Miranda at their comedy gig at the end of season 2. When Miranda walks out, hurt and mortified, Carrie does not follow her friend who has just been publicly shamed by her ex. Nope, she sits and looks awkward with Aiden and leaves Miranda on her own. She demands Miranda goes to her last dinner party? I wonder if that's an editing error. And does not listen to her friend's reasonable protests about not wanting to see her ex Che there. Number 5, Carrie is also more of a prude than she ever was in Sex and the City, and for a former sex columnist, she's not sex positive. I think that means maximum slut. In Sex and the City, yes, she was always more conservative compared to Samantha, but she was always open-minded, refusing point-blank to talk about vaginal dryness, pegging, and polyamory to the point of getting her podcast shut down is ridiculous, shaming, and also sends out dangerous health messaging, as does her casual shaming of STDs. Yes, everyone should have an STD. They're not shameful, they're good. Jesus Christ. This is me being sarcastic.
Yes,
Do not
I know.
get STDs. No, that's not for you. It's for our many viewers who are all probably having sex with huge numbers of different people. That's unfortunately also sarcasm, but
Is
oh my
it
God,
really,
don't
though?
actually do that. You'll get an STD.
No. Like people have
Also
like
possibly an accusation.
women have never been filthier. Like they act. There's more women with STDs than men. You know,
By a long shot.
by a long shot. So don't.
Okay. Oh man, this is getting. This
enjoy
article
your
is getting,
virginity. Become wizards.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Bisexuality shaming. This was a problematic element of Sex and the City when all the women were openly bi-shaming in season 3 when Carrie's boyfriend comes out as bisexual. Well, he's the wrong kind of bisexual. Women don't like male bisexuals, typically. But clearly writers have not learned from their mistakes. When Miranda breaks up with Che at the end of season 2, and just like that, and is considering dating men, Charlotte says to her, "You don't even know if you're gay, and as your very good friend of over 25 years, I think you should just figure it out." That is the blandest, wishy-washiest. That's definitely not. I think that's too incoherent to be considered bisexuality shaming, or to be very criticized. I mean, what? It's like they felt they had to give Charlotte a line, and then they just said, "What are we getting her to say that's inoffensive?" Oh, I know. How about this? And gave her that line. That's kind of the impression I get. But I didn't see that episode, so
No.
who knows?
Maybe I just wanted to prove to John Doe that no, the
hate
women
this too.
aren't the women hate it too. The audience members. It was hilarious. They're complaining about what this man is writing for them. Well, maybe write something yourself. I mean, you are supposedly a journalist, and no doubt, because you're a woman journalist, you actually wanted to be a novelist, because they all do.
Well, she might not want to be a novelist because this is written in a way that is not too self-absorbed and not incredibly purple in its prose. So maybe she's just has enough self-respect not to want to do that. Anyway, but
It's a
now
little
this is an interesting one.
self-absorbed, though.
Yes, I mean, she is still a woman. But number 7, the plot lines don't make sense, and they seem to have forgotten the past. Aiden demanding he and Carrie don't see each other for 5 years because he needs to be with his kids. Why so long, especially at their age? Why can't Carrie go and visit him in Virginia? Carrie also says to Seema at one point she's never been one for taking to her bed when she's depressed. Does she not remember being holed up in bed in a darkened room, blah, 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 for a week with Charlotte, Miranda, and Samantha waiting on her hand and foot after Big jilted her at the altar? I haven't seen enough of the original to have an opinion, so.
Yeah,
okay,
that's why I'm saying we probably don't need to go any further with this article. I just wanted to prove.
I want to go to the end, because there are only a few more.
Okay, all right.
And I'm finding it interesting, genuinely. But it's weird, because this is written by the same person who wrote... well, no, it's not. Only the first couple of episodes are written by him, and then a bunch of other people are brought on, so a lot of it isn't written by him. It's amazing they couldn't find people who are knowledgeable to write this, because this show was huge with women. Anyway, number 8, the fashion is laughable. Carrie's closet in Sex and the City remains iconic to this day. In Just Like That, most of the time they all look like they're in pantomime or cosplay of Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte. Yeah, that hat she wore at the funeral was just calculated to look as weird as possible. In one episode of the new season,
She
Carrie's
looked like
actually
she'd
dressed
stapled
as
a plate to her head.
Yes. Yeah, it was just looked odd. I mean, it would have looked weird in a Star Wars episode. In one episode of the new season, Carrie is actually dressed as Strawberry Shortcake with the most ludicrous billowing hat. Yeah. Number 9, religion shaming. In season 3, Miranda's lesbian sexual odyssey continues with a sweet woman called Mary who Carrie and Miranda relentlessly then shame on account of being a nun. Okay, so she's having lesbian sex with a nun. I don't think nuns are supposed to do that, typically.
Yeah, that seems a bit counter to
the whole nunly thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
this doesn't seem to be nunly.
Number 10, the writing is often appalling. It's just not as razor-sharp, clever, and poignant as it was in Sex and the City. Absolutely agree here. In the new season 3, when Carrie and Aiden attempt to have a long-distance phone sex, Aiden is in his truck and accidentally beeps on the horn in his excitement. The horn! While getting the horn! And neither of them make a joke about it. I don't think that's a good example of writing that's not razor-sharp, clever, and poignant. I mean, that's an example of them not going for the most obvious, lowbrow joke. Oh, there's a picture of her dressed as Strawberry Shortcake here. Yeah, that's... Scroll down to, like, just above number 10. It's a tiny picture, but it's there. There it is.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah,
What?
that's a very interesting... Interesting hat.
You see, this is what I was saying. They're just run around in way too much fabric.
Weird getup. Yes. All right. So, because the thing is, what I think we're going to talk about what aspects of the writing in the original were actually clever and poignant, and I don't think this woman is qualified to do so. This glamour writer. She says, "I could go on the grotesque privilege that goes unchecked and is so wrong for now." I mean, they always have tons of money, and a lot of them have jobs that are basically not real jobs, that they still live in nice apartments in a very expensive city. I mean, I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, Harry's crap interior decor. That's just as important as the bad writing, apparently. I also won't be watching anymore. She likes the cat. Okay, and that's the end of it. End of the article.
And just like that, the article ended.
Yes.
Well, actually, speaking of cats, Void Cat has kept her distance. I wonder what's going on. She's probably somewhere in the dark, waiting for the moment to strike. The writing in the original, the one thing that I really liked about it was, again, that the women would be saying something and they would be doing something else. So it was a little bit of a critique on the women as well as the men. And I appreciated that. I don't know if it was as much a critique on the women as it was the men, but at least it was there. So there was a little bit of self-awareness, I think, in the writing. And maybe it's because it was written by that. But the sequel was written by the same man. So God knows what happened. I maybe there's, writers expire. They get, a good 10 years, and then everything else they do is crap. I don't know. But yeah, it did keep to good writer craft. There was goals, there were obstacles, there were aspirations, there were things that these individuals thought that were incorrect, Carrie had incorrect approaches. I have heard that she's a sociopath, so I don't know how much you could really root for her, but regardless, there appeared to be some criticism of her behavior, and she was shown to be wrong in her approaches and her understanding of things periodically, which is always good. It's interesting, makes things interesting. So that was good. What did you think was good about the writing, Teleanor and Doughboy?
She was a little more self-aware in the original. I think it was in the first episode she ran into her ex, and she said, "He was the mistake I made at 21 and 25 and 29 and 31." She knew this guy was a problem, but she kept going back to him.
Yeah. But, eventually you're going to have to change that, presumably. I mean, it seems like she did advance herself somehow, because Mr. Big seems like a reasonable human being. Although, considering that the place where they lived in, I don't think he's a billionaire. But, he seemed reasonably well off and apparently committed to her for 20 years. No children, but sometimes that happens through no fault of anybody in the relationship, and so I guess there was hope that she moved forward in her life and learned whatever mistakes she was making to overcome them. Who knows? I didn't watch the whole thing, so I don't know Carrie's arc, if there was an arc, or if she just passively lucked out into the positive conclusion that obviously happened. Oh, speak of the void, and it shall arrive. I don't know if you guys can hear her. Yeah, she's making her commentary known. Why don't we go into the second episode of Sex and the City and the second episode of the reboot, and what we can glean from that. Teleanor, take it away. Second episode of Sex and the City. Plot. Oh, here.
Okay. Well,
she has arrived.
We didn't summarize the first one either.
Oh, okay.
So maybe I'll just do the first episode summary. So it opens with an anecdote about how hard it is for a successful woman in New York to find a good man, and we meet Carrie and her friends at a birthday party for Miranda, who's in her 30s, and they're all talking about how hard it is to finding the perfect guy and getting married and settling down, and say, we'll start having sex like men. And then they have social encounters with Mr. Big, who says he absolutely does believe in love, which Carrie says she's looking for. So She, as we mentioned, she gets her goal and the obstacle of having to convince him, and Miranda starts dating nice guy Skipper Johnston, and who is, I mean, I think we'd probably call him either a beta or a simp at this point if we wanted to summarize his personality in a very 2025 manner.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see, Charlotte, who is the more conservative one, goes on a date with some bigwig in publishing, I think. Then she says, "I don't want to have sex with you immediately." He says, "Okay," and he gets a ride in the same cab as her when she's going to her place, and says, "Drop me off at the club before." And she says, "Wait, what? Why are you going back there?" And he says, "Look, I just have to have sex tonight." So he's clearly just cares about getting inside of something warm, wet, and willing. And so he winds up shagging Samantha, who is the loosest of the four women. And basically, so that's 25 minutes, but we get introduced to what they want, which is typically love, and the difficulties of getting it are rubbed in our face. Like, Samantha's having a hard time. Samantha tries to seduce, this isn't mentioned in the summary that I described, but at one point during the party, Samantha tries to seduce Mr. Big and fails in an awkward manner, but then gets used as a, like, it's getting late and I need a hole type woman by this other guy. So she does have sex, and it is with someone who is impressive and high status, but it's not someone who likes and respects her very much. And Carrie gets a hint of something more, and Charlotte gets it rubbed in her face that what she wants is hard to find. And Miranda she tries to find her unconventional love with this guy who is not very masculine or assertive. And one thing that I also haven't mentioned, or two things, which is, first of all, there's an entire segment of the first episode that basically describes the same relationship and dating dynamics that Red Pillars have been describing for 10 or 15 years. And this is in a book that was published in 96, I believe. Basically, like, men increasing in value in the dating market in their 30s and 40s, and women decreasing, and this having a result of changing how each sex behaves in relationships, and women's initial reluctance to enter into long-term relationships when they're younger, and then this causing them to become either giving up entirely or becoming eager and very desperate in their 30s and being in a hurry, and this being undesirable to men who think, well, I don't want to get married almost as soon as I've met this person and immediately start a family. I want to meet someone younger than me, and we can take it easy and have fun a little bit and enjoy ourselves. So all of the same dynamics that we're seeing in a very widespread way are captured in a little snapshot in this episode in a very efficient manner. That's the first episode. Second episode of the original show. The date with Miranda and Skipper, who she calls Skippy because she never gets his name right, it kind of didn't go well because he's nervous and awkward. But then they bump into each other at a convenience store, and he rizzes her up, as I believe Gen Z is saying, and they wind up banging. Except he kind of accidentally does it, and she says, "Yeah, okay, let's do this." Like, she's not head over heels for him, but she basically settles for Skipper, who is not very impressive or successful or masculine at this point in time, and doesn't have a very good hairdo. I don't find it very flattering. Maybe my two co-hosts could weigh in on this, but I think they deliberately said, okay, let's make this guy not look incredibly good looking. Carrie meets up with this other guy who basically has sex with models most of the time and enjoys just videotaping them. So he's basically a painter is what he does for a living, but his hobby is banging the models and videotaping them. So it's just, his hobby is amateur pornography. It is with models, so, you know. And then we meet Derek, who is a male model, and he actually has this very wholesome scene that I think tugged at all our heartstrings a little bit because when we meet him, he's in his underwear and very good looking and nice, and he's kind of a himbo possibly. And then he says, "Can I just spend the night lying next to you because I'm lonely all the time in this city, even though we're surrounded by people who just get lonely." And they don't have sex, and they have an actual heart to heart, and you really get the impression that he's just some guy who is really good looking, but just wants to maybe make a little money doing this, fine, but then go home and to a small town and get married and have a family and just be a cop or something. And Samantha finds out. Samantha, the super hoe, as she's called by Reginald, what's his name, this comedian who watched the show and reviewed it, also. She finds out that this painter guy, Barkley, has sex with models and tapes them, and she is insecure and wants to prove to herself that she's as attractive as a model that she could be one if she wanted. So she manages to seduce him and tells him to record their amorous activities.
She's fine with the fact that he's recording. In fact, she's excited by it. This is one of the things I liked about Samantha. She was so
it puts
degenerate.
her on a par with the models who are better looking than she is.
But she's so unapologetically degenerate. Yeah. It was actually sort of refreshing because there's so much hypocrisy with the other women trying to be trying to rules lawyer chasteness while also being pretty degenerate, whereas Samantha was just honest about it. But anyway, continue.
Well, that's about it for that episode. It's all I remember about it, too. It didn't quite contain as much information as the first one, but they didn't have as much voiceover or introductory speeches or anything like that. So that's normal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the second episode of the reboot.
Yes. So the second episode centers almost entirely around the funeral for Mr. Big, because he died from a heart attack in the previous one.
Yeah, I remember that.
So,
and it didn't really seem to hit a note. But we can get into that when we're done.
Yeah, so first there's this big to-do about finding the right place, because it's a non-traditional venue, and oh my god, I said no flowers, and then flowers are sent anyway by Samantha, but there's no further interaction. And then there are some random interactions with the guests, which don't really have any impact on the entire plot for the most part. It's just random stuff happens during the funeral, but we don't like. One of the big deals is, oh, I don't like the decor, and I said no flowers. And then there's just this huge, endless, to do about that, but it doesn't really matter to anything that ever happens or is done. It doesn't teach us anything about the characters. Like, oh, this person doesn't want flowers. Well, it never matters at any other point. So the whole episode is, yeah. Anyhow, however, after the funeral, something interesting does happen because the podcasters, the gross podcasters who talk about sex stuff in a really crass way, the one who shaved her head and said, "I'm now non-binary and not a woman anymore," just gives her marijuana to this random 17-year-old who happens to be Miranda's son, and she doesn't know who he is and she doesn't know how old he is, but he definitely looks like they cast someone who actually looks about 17, and she doesn't know who he is, and she just gives him her marijuana vape, because I don't know, she's an idiot or a degenerate or something. And Miranda basically has actually quite a fun moment that I really enjoyed, because she puts the Che in her place, lawyer style, and basically threatens her with legal action, as I recall, corrupting a minor.
For years, women have fought hard to ensure
her down to size, and I just enjoyed that because I didn't like her very much. I thought the character was obnoxious, and so that was fun. However, Che goes away, and then Miranda immediately after that, like 30 seconds after that, finds out that he just yelled at her friend's boss. And then the moment she discovers that, she just does a complete 180 and says, "Oh my god, I'm had no idea, and she makes nicey nice, and they're instantly friends in like 5 seconds because I don't know, the plot needed them to be or something.
The tiny amount of conflict is resolved in a second. Yeah.
Yeah, even though it's fairly significant. Anyway, that we then go to the hotel room afterwards, and Charlotte makes her friend's husband's death all about her because she's very emotional, because she's traditional, and traditional women are weak and vapid and cry all the time for like no reason and are emotionally unstable, and they don't try to be pillars of reassuring strength during times like this, because I think that's the show's message or something like that. And we all develop some contempt for her character because she makes the widow of the woman who got widowed just now have to comfort her. Like, come on. Then she's hanging out with her friends, and it takes there's some conflict and some cattiness because she's hanging out with her non-Charlotte friends because she doesn't think she can handle Charlotte emotionally right now, Charlotte being the one who got upset. And when she does come over, Charlotte finds out, and then they all the conflict is all resolved by the clever, witty gay man. So in that respect, at least, it's being very true to life. And then they all have alcohol and talk about whatever and become friends again. So conflict resolved, I guess. And then towards the end of the episode, Miranda, who was awkwardly, kind of accidentally racist to a professor, encounters her on the subway, rescues her from being mugged, and they become friends again, but she's still drinking lots of alcohol because she's unhappy with her family. Or something like that. I think because she has a loser husband who isn't big and strong and putting her in her place or whatever. Who the hell knows? We didn't watch any further episodes, so whatever. Anyway, that's the end of that episode.
Yeah. Oh, she's after my
So
water
there were
again.
there were a lot of events, but the only thing that really mattered, would be Miranda interacting with Professor Wallace by preventing the mugging, and in theory, the flowers that were sent by their friend Samantha, whom they're no longer in contact with. But that's kind of for the whole episode. Oh, and yes, and Remote Ruby informs us that, or would like to say, so the way Charlotte is being described sounds like the reason that the marketing campaign for tranquilizers for women came into being. Yeah, possibly.
Mm-hmm. So it's here's one of the big problems with the writing. Any bit of conflict, they don't foreshadow, they don't set it up. Like, the thing is that if you had taken, right, the big conflict for the first episode is, of course, the death of Mr. Big, but it wasn't foreshadowed. Did you remember that? There was no sense that something was like he didn't have like chest pains. There wasn't any meaningful lingering on a symbolic object. Like, for example, we watched Godzilla -1 yesterday, and spoilers, there is a part of the plot is about the pilot choosing whether to give up his life. He's a former kamikaze pilot who failed to do a suicide run and instead prioritized his life. And then when they're fighting Godzilla, he has to make the choice whether or not to kill himself or to save himself. Kill himself, thus redeeming his honor, or to actually care about his life, his own life, as having value in and of itself. And there's a scene where we're looking at the plane, the cockpit of the plane, and we see the seat, and a character is examining the seat, and that is this foreshadowing the decision. But there's no foreshadowing of what happens to Mr. Big, at least none that I could notice. If the guy was foreshadowing, it was foresuttling. It's very, very subtle, not like forebricking, which is what I think J.R.R. Martin does, but regardless, it was too subtle for me to pick up, and usually I can pick this stuff up really quickly. And so they took what should be like that conflict, that moment of crisis, should have been pulled throughout the entire 45-minute episode through foreshadowing, through giving people a sense that something bad is going to happen. And that draws people into the story and draws them along with the suspense of, oh, something is going to happen because there's all this foreshadowing. What's that thing that's going to happen? And then he dies. And that creates a more solid sense of a cohesive story. That wasn't there. Like, there was no setup for that scene. No foreshadowing, no setup. Setup could have been something like him talking about going to the doctor for heart pains, or being on statins for his cholesterol, something like, or alternatively, I don't know, some kind of metric that on his fitness watch, maybe it was beeping something, and he's like, oh, I gotta get this fixed. It's always calling, something, okay, and there wasn't. And that led to a story that was very disjointed. It was just like this thing happens, and it's almost separate from the rest of the plot. And it's separate from the rest of the plot because he didn't pull it through. And then you would want to layer that setup to building up to the death of Mr. Big. You'd want to layer it with other things related, like maybe Miranda and her husband are having a health scare, or somebody's father, grandfather, grandmother dies of something. So to bring in thematically, like bring in more stuff that relates to that central premise, and none of that's there. It's not really careful writing, because that's what you want to do. You want to set things up, and sometimes you set things up by describing a subplot with two other characters, so you get it in people's heads. Like, don't think about a white elephant. What is everybody doing now? They're thinking about a white elephant. That's what you do. You set up these questions in people's heads using subplots, stories between other characters. And by the time it happens, the audience has been sweating it out, waiting to figure out what shoe is going to drop. You could have it so that all of the romantic relationships are between sympathetic characters, and then which one is going to get it? Which one is the foreshadowing the destruction of? And then have her respond realistically in a way that's meaningful. Like, she just sort of accepts it, and it becomes like, oh, can I do a close-up with my dying husband in my arms? I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille. Like, Vaseline the lens. I want to look really good as my husband dies. It was ridiculous. It was too artificial. And if you're going to bring in something like death into a story like Sex and the City, which, okay, Void Cat, you're bringing the chaos. Do you really need to bring the chaos? Does it really need to be brought? All right. She's bringing the chaos to the podcast. If you want to bring death to something like Sex and the City, which I think you should think about carefully, then make it meaningful. And then we have the funeral. And a funeral's really good for doing world building and establishing character. But this funeral didn't know what it wanted to be. Was it a black humor satire of the funeral industry and conventions around mourning? Was it a genuine look at grief? Like, it didn't hit a note. It didn't hit a consistent note. So it ended up being confusing, and because it was confusing, baffling and bland and uninteresting. Does anyone want to comment on what I've said so far in terms of my criticism of the writing? Nothing? Okay.
Do you have anything to say, or should I jump in?
I think just jump in, Telenar, and if Doughboy has something to say, he can press. You can do the one.
He can jump in afterwards, and I'll just take my chances. So, yeah, they do, as you say, it sort of didn't know what it wanted to do. The funeral, that is, but they sort of had moments where they were. Are we only talking about the second episode? I think we are. Yeah, like they had moments where it felt like they were trying to draw interesting little pictures, like use minor characters to draw interesting little pictures of his backstory. Like they bring his old secretary in and they chat about it, and you can have backstory, or at least
Yeah, but the problem with the secretary one was then they immediately had this segue into people turning the funeral sort of crass. They were starting to insult the Mr. Big, who's dead, like the dead guy at the funeral, by saying, "Oh, don't you remember? Are we the only ones who remember what an asshole he was to her, or something?" Which I don't know. Maybe he was, but is a funeral really the place? Is the guy's funeral really the place for that?
Yeah, they started to do that, but then they did what you just mentioned, and then they have some slightly silly stuff, some absurd stuff, and you can definitely have jokes. You can make an episode about a funeral that has, like, in a comedy that has funny, silly stuff happen, obviously, but it's switching between heartwarming or upsettingly crass or trying to be funny, just at breakneck speed. It's giving you whiplash, so you don't know what they're trying to do. And then, as I said, I did enjoy the chastising of Che for giving what's his face, well, whatever, the son of Miranda, some marijuana, which is like it's kind of a stupid thing to do. Not exactly the, like, who gets stoned on a vape, like in the middle of a reception after a funeral? You're not even really supposed to be drunk at these kind of things. Like, it's not an Irish wake where you're supposed to get drunk, and even then you're not supposed to get stoned. And also, it doesn't smell very good typically either. So you're basically, oh, anyway. So the other annoying thing was then they have a serious conflict, which is shown to be very serious, and lawyers can. I've only really gotten one kind of interaction like that from a lawyer, and it wasn't in person, it was by email, but they can do the whole, like, oh my god, do what I'm saying or I'll bring legal action to bear against you. Like, they can do it in a pretty intimidating way because they know how to phrase things.
Lawyers plus 20 intimidation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was great, and I thought, oh, this is cool, we now have this tension and drama between these two characters, and then within 30 seconds, it just vanishes because she finds out that, oh, this is my friend's boss, and there's no mention of it. There's, like, it's so, like, no one is like this. No one forgets that, oh, this is that woman who, number one, is getting stoned at a funeral, number two, also helped my son get stoned, and number three, I just tore her a new one in a very cool way, by the way. I as I said, genuinely enjoyed that. And then, like, you could at least pretend or be cold and civil and neutral because, okay, she stopped, she went away, now I've found out that she has this relationship with my friend, she's my friend's boss, I'm just going to consider the matter closed. Like, you could do that. Like, there are a bunch of different options, but they're insta friends because she's her friend's boss. And I mean, not to stereotype women, but it'd be a little bit more realistic if she was insanely vindictive towards her and held a grudge for a hell of a long time, which would have been a more interesting plot line, yes. But then it wouldn't have been the girlies being girlies or however the hell they're saying it these days. Like, showing women as disliking each other and having grudges and having
interesting things.
Enmity would have been.
It's so funny because they make
feminist, but more interesting writing.
They make these female characters disinteresting because some of the most interesting reason, for example, why Tony Stark is interesting is because he does bad things that he hasn't acknowledged, and then he spends the movie trying to redeem himself for it. So there's a recognition that how his actions affect others, and how there's this entire dimension of redemption, condemnation and redemption that male characters occupy that female characters seem to be exempt from, and it makes them boring. Like, even a woman who's vindictive and then they gradually overcome it through, I don't know, interesting escapades or a shared enemy. That's interesting. This is boring. It's why this work is boring. Right? It's why this writing is boring, and this like I said, the setup is terrible. This writing that in and then just like that, it's like the writing you do when you're just making a deadline, and it's boring, it's dry, it's like you're just trying to fill 45 minutes, and you don't have the passion of making everything tight, making everything sizzle. And I don't mean lit from within, because that is just the stupidest phrase ever. It's excuse for writing dross, but making things that people are on the edge of their seat to want to find out more. Even if it is something as simple as, will Carrie get Mr. Big? Will Carrie resolve her own bullshit in order to get Mr. Big? You know, will this man find the most delicious pizza in all of New York? You know, this can be simple things, but if you actually bring in the stakes and you bring in the need, and you let your characters want and need and fight, and even if it's not a physical fight, but fight themselves, fight outside forces, fight obstacles, you can make things interesting even if they're simple. Right? You know, like I'm trying, I'll have to think about this for a second, but I remember there was this moment in one of the things that we've watched recently where it was such a mundane act, but we were all on the edge of our seats to find out the resolution of it, and it's on the tip of my tongue, but I cannot remember what it was. But we witnessed it recently. I'm going to let Doughboy take the stage, and I'm going to try to desperately figure that out, what it was.
Well, I did want to say that I was doing some reading on the show, and apparently Miranda's storyline does get a little interesting, but also horrible, because she ends up cheating on her husband of 20 years with Che.
Ugh. Yeah, I did hear about that. Well, I'm going to use an example that comes to mind, but isn't the example I was thinking of. The King's Speech. The entire conflict of the story is about public speaking. And the climax is the king taking the stage and overcoming his stutter in order to deliver an address to the nation. And so it's all about a speech. The climactic action is a speech. It's not saving the world. It's not fighting Godzilla. It's making a speech. You know, and it's not completely mundane because it's the king making a speech, but it's something that, you know, you wouldn't, it isn't like a gigantic action-based climax. It's something very personal, very intimate, and more mundane than, let's say, saving the world from giant space lasers or something. And that's what I'm talking about. Good writing can make somebody dropping a handkerchief into something like world-shattering, because you've built up the stakes, you've built up the plot around it, you've built up the foreshadowing, you've built up the setup, you've built up the meaning of this dropped handkerchief to all of the characters in the story. So what I'm trying to get at is you can make fiction that is more personal, more slice of life, more intimate, more domestic, into something compelling. But you have to do the work, and this is work that is not being done. It's work that's being dropped. Like it's just it reads it in my mind. If I was reading this, it's like a first draft if you are bored and you don't actually want to write the story. It's just getting stuff down, fulfilling a quota to get your paycheck, and it's really inert, and it's shoehorning in the modern thing, like the modern virtue signaling things, and calling it a day. So I think like it's just the problem with this writing is that it's poorly crafted and it's dull. Like I mean, we can talk about the virtue signaling. I know a lot of other, you know, commentators on our side of the pond, if there's really sides, would talk more about the virtue signaling and how the woke stuff destroys it. I'm not really that interested in that. I'm here for the writer's craft. I'm here for, let's see the emotional beats. Let's see the setup. Let's see the scenes and sequels. You know, let's see the causality. Let's see the foreshadowing. You know, let's see how you've woven in the themes of the subplot with the main plot. I'm for that. And inevitably, the people who write, or wherever, yeah, if it's not there, inevitably the people who write this woke stuff don't have that. They don't have the chops. Now, you can get upset with me and call me whatever name in the book, but I call it as I see it. You don't have the chops. Why don't you have the chops? Why is it that when you invest in this mentality, you stop being able to write? Why is it incompatible with beauty? Why is it incompatible with craft? Why is it incompatible with quality? Why is it this stuff is boring, tedious, and tiresome? The original Sex and the City was supposedly feminist, but it wasn't boring, tedious, and tiresome. And one thing that I would point out is that, again, if it was feminist, there was some element of it that was giving equal pay to the opinions of men and also showing the foibles of women. So, you just have to ask yourself that. Why is woke writing so broke? All right. Did you guys want to add anything to that?
I would like to add that seeing episode 2 have at least a little physical violence. Seeing episode 2 have at least a little physical violence when Miranda got pissed off at Shay might have actually elevated things a little bit in terms of the entertainment factor. It would have for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And also it could have served as a springboard for some romantic tension. You know? Be a very interesting
That was
meet
a
cute.
dominant submissive relationship, absolutely.
Well, it's like a meet cute, except the meet cute is this non-binary individual groomed my son into smoking dope. Like,
And then I beat her up.
And then I beat her up. Well, that's a story for the ages. Maybe if they had that story as their beginning, they wouldn't have crashed out. Okay. All right. So, any further? Like, you guys want to? I might go into the super chat, see if we got any super chats. I think it's been quiet tonight. Super chows. Nope. If you want to send us a super chow, you probably got a few minutes left. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you want to comment on anything that we've talked about. And go into the super chat because somebody was giving John Doe gruff. I think, let me go see if it... Okay, Nancy AC88. No, actually it was after John Doe says, John Doe, her relationship with dating sites, but just the sites, not the men. Yeah. The dating sites aren't giving her what she wants, so the problem is the dating sites. And John Doe says, women are on dating sites so their egos can be inflated. And Namyak88 says, John Doe, who hurt you? If he was hurt by a woman, does that make his opinion less valid? Like, that's what's so funny. I get into these arguments with feminists, and if they find out that you've been abused by a woman, they're like, oh, you can't advocate for victims of female abuse. You've been abused by a woman. Your opinions are biased. It's like, okay. Does that apply to men, advocates for female abuse victims of men? Of course not. Okay, so I wanted to look at this because somebody suggested, I'm not sure where. So one of you guys suggested this. This is called A Message from the Women Against Tiredness Society. And let me just set up the... Yeah, yes. Let's watch this. Because it was a suggestion. I might have to banana it, but we'll go. We'll see. We'll go as far as we can.
For years, women have fought hard to ensure that our generation had an equal place in the workforce.
And to all those women, we just want to say,
thank you. But also, you. I am so tired.
Being a working woman sucks balls.
I work for a women's rights NGO, and every day I get letters from little girls saying, help me, I need an education. And I'm like, no you don't. I had an education. You know what I need now? A nap
In my mother's day, they used to say that a woman's place was in the kitchen. And to that I say, why did that change? I work a 50-hour week in an architecture firm designing kitchens, and ironically, I can't find one night to cook a meal of my own. If I have to eat one more Tesco ready meal, I will milk it.
My mother raised me to be an independent woman. I don't want to do that. I want to marry a rich banker and go to brunch.
I gotta pause it. Shoot. Actually, this was more entertaining than the entire 2 episodes of and then there was Splat that we watched. But it has a little bit of the feel of the original Sex and the City, because I think it did have that kind of satirical edge that made it more compelling. Did you guys want to chime in? I'm giving you the opportunity.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to organize my thoughts, but going back to reasons why wokeness causes people to be bad writers is, number one, the craft of writing is a craft, and therefore there are restraints and rules and ways of doing things that work and ways of doing things that don't, and you have to follow them. And if you can manipulate them in interesting ways, then that's good, but you still have to know what you're doing. And inherently, any constraint or limitation or rule is seen as bad if it applies to you by the woke ideology. Not if you can apply it to other people, but it better not apply to you. So people who think like that are just not going to be as interested in chasing down the logical outcome of Miranda having a big argument with Che about getting her friend stoned, or her son stoned, I mean, at the wake. So, and you're not going to have someone who's going to sit around and say, okay, so she reacts with him like this, and we've got this lawyer, an angered mother tearing into this random chick she doesn't know, and then after that, what's the logical outcome of her encountering her again with Carrie and finding out she's Carrie's boss? Mm-hmm. Well, they don't want to think about that. You can't, there's no sitting around and plotting out a big rivalry or a Cold War type situation or whatever they have between each other. So, because that would be difficult, and then they just pretend it never happened. Second would be, if you want to write about people doing things, then you have to have some observation of human nature, and even if it's like something basic, like one of those 1950s, oh my god, we're running from the monster thing, then you still have people who are frightened or determined or interested or whatever they are. Like, they have reasonable reactions to the thing from the Black Lagoon or the alien from Planet Radioactivia or something like that. Like, even that, even if it's very simple stuff and it's not complex interplay of like love triangle or love pentagon or whatever the hell you've got there. On the other hand, if you are woke, then there's a certain ideology you have to espouse, and if you get to a point, once again, let's go back to the argument with Miranda and Che. If you can't really have a woman hating and having a permanent dislike for, or even long-term dislike for, someone who is also a woman but also is non-binary and has a slightly edgy hairstyle and has a progressive podcast. So that just can't happen. That interesting conflict just can't happen because it's not woke to dislike someone of that type who's behaving that way.
Yeah.
So
then interesting conflicts can't happen. And yeah, there, just to get back into, like, there could have been interesting central conflicts, almost like the death of Mr. Big. Well, that's something that could have come over a season, not just a single episode. And then the conflict between Miranda and Che, that could have been more central and more set up. And it's like I said, you're right. I think we're all right. It's just a lack of craft. And then if anybody complains because they've inserted all this diversity and virtue signaling, they can just call us names. All right.
I might be out to lunch with this one, but in a weird way, I actually think the woke elements demonstrate some of the more competent storytelling. The example that I can think of is Miranda's relationship with her professor. Mm-hmm. She starts off really awkward that big speech that she admits would have been memed into oblivion if they had been recording. But over the episode, she and the professor actually become a little closer. She actually listens and takes feedback. And by the end, they actually settle into a more comfortable dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it actually does, like, there actually is an arc there. It's not a very fun one, but it does demonstrate at least a little bit of storytelling craft to it.
Yeah. That's true. But still, overall, it's...
Well, that's actually, I'd like to build on what Doughboy said, which is, it's interesting, what you've just pointed out is that the scenes like that, where they show Miranda trying to abide by what she thinks the rules of wokeness are, and what they kind of nominally are, if you read them, and encountering people who are in some cases even more woke than she is, but these people are all shown to be, the rules and the people are shown to be kind of ridiculous and kind of impossible to follow. So in some ways, when this ideology is on the screen, the show is at its best when it's doing the Sex and the City thing of showing it to be a little bit ridiculous.
And it's interesting that conflict is resolved by like a simple human exchange, where Miranda goes out of her way to try to protect the woman from someone on the subway. Like it ends up being that she redeems herself, and it's almost a little bit of a masculine arc if you think about it, because Miranda is attempting to soothe and assuage the feelings of another person who just honestly just seems increasingly annoyed that Miranda's putting that much effort into it. It feels like she's just like, could you just stop, please? And then finally Miranda redeems herself by engaging in an act of heroism, which is, relating to another person or caring about another person on a fundamental level of just basic humanity and safety. So it's interesting. You're right. It is interesting that was one of the subplots. I don't know if I like anything about Che, but it's one of the subplots that worked better than the rest of them. And it is really interesting that it frames Miranda as a moral actor rather than a moral patient. Is that not an interesting thing?
She is the most masculine of the four women, and she always has been, so that doesn't terribly surprise me.
No, it doesn't surprise you. Although it would be nice if writers could wrap their heads around making feminine women moral agents as well, which I feel like I have attempted to do in my own writing. But
they did Charlotte dirty in the second episode, the funeral episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If she'd been going around just trying to make sure everything and everyone was okay, and just saying, like, being trying to be very helpful to her friend, and trying to figure out what people's emotional states are, and trying to anticipate their needs and make sure everything is hunky-dory as much as it can be.
Yeah.
In a very, tender,
and nurturing way,
if you might say. Yes, nurturing, that's the right word. Then that would have been a nice moment for her character to shine, but they just made her needy and unstable.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's sort of a very unflattering look at women. I mean, not necessarily incorrect, but very unflattering. And at the same time, as I think that people insist that you look at these portrayals of women and say, oh, that's strong and empowered. Well, I mean, I guess probably they were trying to make the more conservative one look neurotic, and although I don't know, it feels like Carrie is just bland in this one, just really, really bland, and you never really get to dig into her feelings around the grief. It seems like it doesn't even want to look at that. It's bringing in death into this story, but it doesn't have the courage to really look at death with any kind of frankness. Like it just becomes like the funeral just becomes a performance. You know what I mean? And then at the end, her only real emotion is frustration over all of the stuff that people sent her that she now has to, I guess, dispose of. It's like, was there a moment that you really get, and even the crying that she did at the funeral felt really performative. That's like this medium. Well, I mean, not so like novels are better for this, but TV series it's actually not a bad medium for getting into people's heads and seeing their responses to things. And yet, the writer isn't exploiting that aspect of the medium. And it's unfortunate. Like, why wouldn't you just spend a little bit of time exploring Carrie's grief over this? It makes her a much more grounded human being, as opposed to dealing with all these funeral shenanigans. Go ahead.
I wonder if that problem might be attributable to Sarah Jessica Parker. I think she's an executive producer on Just Like That. Maybe she's just living vicariously through Carrie.
Yeah, maybe. In which case, then the death of her husband was just getting rid of an inconvenience, which is, wow, that's chillingly sociopathic.
She is executive producer. I can confirm.
Oh, okay. So they could do just a little bit of let's get back to the Sex and the City norm where she's dating and get rid of this relationship that she's had for 20 years and not really even explore grief. And a story about 50-something women, or even I think one of them might be close to 60, dealing with grief. Now that is brave. That is a certain amount of courage. That's making an effort, but that's not what this is. It turns grief into a performance, which is surprisingly one of the intense flaws that women seem to fall into. Everything becomes a performance. That's why they seem to think that masculinity is a performance. They don't understand that it's more of an act. And I don't mean like an act as in a performance act. I mean as taking an action. Okay. I mean, like they say that toxic masculinity is performing a certain type of masculinity. I'm like, no. What you term toxic masculinity is seeing yourself solely in terms of the consequences, the actions that you take. And it's not toxic. It's just its own thing.
That's one of the many, many ways that term is used, because it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Part of its utility for feminists. If you can't define it, then you are like water. You flow from shape to shape, depending on whatever argument you're in.
Yeah. That's very true. All right, so let's finish this off.
Someone else once said sword-fighting fart. I also had a couple of other comments, sorry.
Okay. No,
for providing so much content for you. But I do believe in earning my pay, which is coming to me any day now, I think. Anyhow, one of the other things that woke people tend to not be is what we call like a systems thinker a lot of the time. Like they tend not to be the type of person perhaps who sits down and writes a story by plotting everything out on a whiteboard and saying, according to these three previous things that have happened in this character's existing knowledge from their background, then they would do that, and it would have those consequences for these characters. Like, they won't sit down and write a story in that way. They will tend to do they'll have these bunches of emotions and then maybe some dialogue and some Mai Tais or whatever drink they were having when they were all after the funeral. The gay guy trying to just keep the peace because he didn't want them all to tear each other to bloody shreds in the hotel hallway or something. And also, if you have a particular message or principle that you want your story to illustrate, and it could be like Godzilla -1 is kind of the power of friendship a little bit, but it's also like a bit of a humanist message, like just dying honorably doesn't really achieve much. Like, try to achieve your goal and then get out alive, otherwise there's no point. Things like that, like or whatever other story you want to think of. Well, you have to work out the logical consequences of, okay, well, why would people think this? And in Godzilla -1, it's because we just had this massive war. There was lots of fighting to the death in the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And it didn't get us anywhere, and lots of people are dead, and we're ruined. We need to not do that. And that's where the idea has a place to come from, and the logical consequences of it existing in the world are spoilers, I guess, which is that, let's minimize the spoilers. This guy who doesn't necessarily like the main character also has kind of come to believe that, and helps him in a certain way at one point in the movie. And you have to understand how different types of people react to it, because the other problem is, if you have a TV show, so let's say that it's And Just Like That, for instance, well, the compared to Sex and the City, the Sex and the City thing is about the search for romance in a time and place where that search is difficult, if not impossible, particularly for women, but also for quite a lot of men, although not real men. I didn't touch on that much, but goddamn. Poor Skippy. Anyhow, not your Skippy, the one in the show.
Mm. Did Miranda end up marrying Skippy?
Yeah, he's her husband in the next one, and they have a sexless marriage, we find out in the next episode, the one we didn't get to.
Oh.
So, which doesn't surprise me at all. But the thing is, like, they're all talking about, let's go out and have sex like a man. And in, like, the previous scene or the next scene or something like that, she's talking to Skippy and says, like, I haven't been out on a date in a year.
Mm.
So...
Yeah, well, they're talking about very specific men, as the T app shows.
Real men, not the bottom 90% of men who are all losers. 95%, 98, who the hell knows? But that is, like, the mess... She looked at the Candace Bushnell, who wrote the story, looked at the consequences and analyzed them in a way that would make any red pill podcast nod approvingly. Basically the sociology of this is how are different types of people going to react to it. You've got, like, more traditional people are going to be really upset that they can't find someone who doesn't want to use them for sex, and the more libertine people are going to say, oh my god, I can just get laid all the time, this is great. And if you're Miranda and you're mannish but also want to have kids or something, but something like your hormones and your natural loving impulses haven't been completely beaten out of you by feminist brainwashing, but only slightly, then, like, what's your reaction going to be? Are you going to wind up taking up with a guy who's kind of a loser and who's low T and will put up with your mannishness because he can't do better than you? Being a little mean here, but I think it might be a little bit of an accurate observation for those two. Like, these are in some ways some uncharitable interpretations of how they're going to look, but people are sometimes not nice, or they don't seek romance or love in a way that's good, or they don't want it at all, or they decide they can't get it and they just decide to be dissolute and just be libertines. I'm going to have sex with whoever. And then but this shows a world that is imperfect, where people are in disagreement about things, where you don't have perfect, like, woke, non or anti-racist, pronoun-respecting, always friends with non-binary individuals, whoever they might be, no matter how they behave, type of society. And it wouldn't be like that realistically, but ideologically, they can't have that, and they also might not be capable of making a plot like that, because then you have to sit down and think, okay, what are the long-term consequences of, for example, Miranda being pissed at Che, of Carrie, how is she going to sit there and think of herself knowing that maybe I should have called 911? I mean, it didn't even get to the point where she actually did. It was so badly written, she didn't even actually try to do that, although I'm pretty sure every woman I know would actually react more sensibly than her.
Yes.
Not even the really cool badass ones like Allison. Like, even the more average ones who are a little more normal. Like, they'd be grabbing their phone and hitting the digits, and then possibly starting to cry a little bit, but they'd definitely be getting the address out and saying, oh my god, I think he's having a heart attack, come quickly. Like, they'd be doing...
And the thing is that the EMT, they're used to reviving people in some pretty heavy states of deadness, which is why this is aggravating to see. Like, she didn't even make the attempt, and she didn't even talk about how, I should have called 911. It was all about how this conflict over her going to, I think it was Miranda's, or no, it was the other one, the conservative one's kids' play. You remember? they had this conflict over the conservative one wanted Carrie to go to her kids' play and sort of guilted her into it, and then Mr. Big ends up dying while Carrie is at this play, and then they have this argument over, or not even an argument, but like this another guilt trip by the conservative one that, you know, that again makes it all about herself. And it was, so instead of Carrie saying, damn it, I should have called 911 and regretting that, it's the conservative character saying something like, yeah, I got you to go to my daughter's play, but somehow that's still also your fault. Do you remember that? Or is this just completely forgotten?
Yes, I remember that. And I remember thinking it was kind of a
stretch?
Silly thing for her to burden Carrie with. I mean, it's not like she did it on purpose. And
yeah, no, she said something like, "Oh, now I have to bear the guilt of making you go to my daughter's play when your husband died. How could you do this to me, Carrie?" Like, oh. Okay. Unlikable character, and it seems like it's intentional because they are trying to say something about conservative women. Okay. All right, just finish your thoughts, Teleanor. I apologize for. Or were you done?
That's about it.
Okay, then
let's finished blathering.
Okay, let's finish this this Women Against Tiredness ad.
The Women Against Tiredness Society. You have to use the entire acronym. It's very important.
Find him on Tinder. Ha!
The Women Against Tiredness. Twat.
Hot hunk, soul search. I made those last two up. No, literally. I made them. I work for a tech startup. And now I'm a high earner. At the end of every day, I'm expected to
She's trying to say split the bill.
I bought a slow cooker 4 years ago and I have never had the chance to use it.
There was a time when women could just go to the bank and take money out. We didn't have to work for it. We could just have it. All for the small fee of sex with our husbands once a month.
So this International Women's Day, take a step in the right direction. Backwards.
No, there's steps there. Careful. Not a good idea.
Brought to you by the Women Against Tiredness Society.
Are they trying to mock women like that? Because the thing is that, and this statistic still floors me. Women who stay at home work on average 24 hours a week. Their husbands work 42, I think. Everybody else works about 50 hours a week. So if you're a woman staying at home, you work half of you do half the work of the rest of the world. So they're not wrong. No, okay, this is empowerment. A job is empowerment, even though for communists a job is exploitation, but somehow if a woman does it, it's empowerment. All right. Okay. No need to make any sense. There's no need to make any sense in any of this. Okay, so that, I think, Doughboy, did you have any last thoughts? Teleanor, have any last thoughts on Sex in the City and the TV show formerly known as Sex in the City?
And just like that, we're done.
I think we'll end it on that. All right. Okay, let me just do a final check. Nope, no super chows. You guys are quiet tonight. Thank you all for joining us. If you do want to leave a message at any time after the show is over, it's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. If you want to join the discussions the Writers Retreat has on stories like this and on writing in general, because we've discussed a lot more than the stuff that's gone out on this channel. A lot more. If you want to take part, go to feedthebadger.com/subscribe and get in our Discord. And if you just want to check it out, it's badgernation.online. Alright, with that, I want to thank my panelists, Teleanor the Magnificent, folklorist, Doughboy. I want to thank everybody who's joined us. and let me find the button. Have a good evening, everyone.